Chapter 6. The Walls. They walked for 2 more days. Pip set the pace and Rowan kept it. His mountain legs adapting to the flat terrain, his eyes learning to read the lowland landscape with something approaching fluency. He could navigate by staircase caps when the path forked. He could identify clean water sources by the bright clusters that grew near the water. When Pip pointed out a species he did not recognize, he could place it in context with what he already knew, each new observation connecting to the ones before it the way his potato rows connected to the weather patterns that fed them. On the second evening, the chorus came again. Rowan sat outside their shelter, a collapsed barn with 2 sound walls and a partial roof, and listened to the harmonics build and shift and build again. The sound was different here than at the pumping station, higher and thinner, the narrowing valley focusing the frequencies. Pip sat beside him. She did not talk for the first half hour, which was unusual enough to register. Then she said, "You heading straight back up after? Or do you have other stops?" Rowan kept his eyes on the sky. "I do not know. That is not a no," Pip said. He watched the clouds shift. "It is not a yes either." Pip pulled her knees up. "I asked because I plan my routes around settlements. If you are coming back through the valley, I can time a trade run the same way. I have a sick mother and a farm to help with. I do not know what I will want after." "All right." Pip said nothing for a moment, then said, "I would not mind the company if it worked out." Rowan did not have a response to that. The chorus filled the silence for him. He understood eventually that this was what it did when humans ran out of words. They sat until the harmonics faded, and neither of them spoke again that night. On the 3rd morning, the growth began to thin. It happened gradually. The canopy overhead, which had been continuous for 2 days, developed gaps. The ground cover pulled back from the center of the path, retreating to the margins. The dense shelf formations and thick mats gave way to sparser, smaller clusters. The organisms competing for surface area with something Rowan had not seen since leaving his mountain. Actual moss, green and fibrous, growing on a rock in a patch of ground where the lowland species had retreated entirely. He crouched and touched it. The texture was his stone house, his potato beds, every damp sheltered place on the mountain where the light still reached. "Light well influence zone," Pip said behind him. "You can always tell when you're getting close to a major settlement. The old plants come back, because there's enough real light for them to compete." Rowan stood, and the valley ahead was changing. The dead trees gave way to live ones, stunted and pale but unmistakably alive. Leaves on their branches instead of growth. The ground showed patches of thin grass between the moss and the diminishing cover. The air smelled drier and cleaner. The heavy organic scent of the deep gray fading and replaced by something he recognized from home, soil and growing things. "How far?" Rowan asked. "Over that ridge." Pip pointed to a rise ahead where the valley narrowed between 2 shoulders of bare rock. "Best view of the approach is from the top. I usually stop there for a minute because it's worth seeing." They climbed. The ridge was short and steep, the path switching back twice before cresting at a saddle of exposed granite. Rowan was breathing hard when he reached the top, straightened, looked west, and stopped. Meridian filled the valley below. It was a city. Walls rose 12 meters from the valley floor. Concrete and reinforced steel studded across their entire surface with solar panels. The walls formed an irregular polygon following the valley's contour, enclosing an area larger than Rowan could estimate. His entire farm, the house and terraces and solar collector and storage shed, and the path to the lower ridge, could have fit inside one section of that wall and left room over. Above the walls, the city climbed. Residential levels stacked 4 stories high, balconies jutting from the facades, and on those balconies hung gardens. Plants in containers, trailing vines green and growing, fed by the light well that was visible now as a brighter patch of sky directly above the city's center. The light well was larger than his mountains, much larger. The clouds above Meridian were visibly thinner, the gray lighter, the dim less dim. It was not sunlight, not really, but an approximation of it, a memory of it. Enough to grow things and sustain things and keep a city alive. From the ridge, Rowan watched the wall move. The solar panels were tilting in sequence, a slow ripple traveling along the array. Each panel finding the light a moment after its neighbor. The whole wall tracking it together. He thought of his single collector at home, fixed at its best compromise angle, and what had felt like ingenuity now felt like making do. People moved on those balconies. Tiny figures at this distance, but real, living people going about tasks he could not identify. On the walls themselves, figures walked patrol routes. Below the walls, a cleared zone of cropped grass and low stone barriers extended outward, the approach managed and maintained. "It is larger than I expected," Rowan said. Pip looked at him sideways. "You expected something?" "I expected a settlement," Rowan said. "My father described walls and guards. He did not describe this." "Your father came here 22 years ago, yeah? It was smaller then, and they've been building up the whole time." "Meridian doesn't stop." She started down the path toward the valley floor. "Come on, the gate process takes a while and I'd rather get through before the light windows shift when they get busy." The approach took an hour. As they drew closer, the walls grew from impressive to disorienting, vertical and smooth and entirely human-made. One step the clouds were visible above him, and the next step they were not. The walls simply replaced the sky, and the transition was more abrupt than any ridgeline he had ever crested. Mountains let you see them coming, but these did not. The gate was a double-width opening in the east wall, flanked by guard stations. A line of people waited at the entrance, perhaps 15, a family with a cart of seed stock, a man carrying something wrapped in oilcloth he would not set down, 2 women comparing notes on a hand-drawn map. The guards wore matching gray coats and carried no visible weapons, but their posture and positioning communicated authority without needing to. Pip walked to a separate queue at the front. Marked by a faded sign Rowan could not read from this distance. "Trader's line," Pip explained. "Registered traders get processed faster. I've been coming here since I was 15. They know me." She waved at one of the guards, a tall woman with close-cropped hair. The guard raised a hand in recognition. "Pip Shen, returning trader," the guard said. She consulted a ledger bound in waxed cloth. "Last visit, 47 days ago. Goods to declare?" "Salvage assortment, the usual." Pip patted her bag, the contents clinking. Copper wire, 2 working compasses, a sealed packet of before-sewing needles, and some other bits. "I'll inventory at the trade office." The guard noted this in her ledger and looked at Rowan. "Who's your companion?" "Rowan Voss, Mountain Settlement East," Pip said. "He's here for the clinic. His mother's sick and he needs medicine." The guard studied Rowan with professional assessment, taking her time over his pack, his clothes, his hands, his face. "Mountain folk?" she said. "Is this your first visit?" "Yes," Rowan said. "Dr. Okoye's appointment queue is full. We've had a run of mountain settlements come through this week." The guard wrote something in her ledger. "If you want to be added to the list, the trade office keeps it. Plan to wait several days." Pip's voice shifted, not louder, but more direct. "His mother is sick, bacterial by the sound of it. He has come 3 days for this. I have noted that." The guard's voice did not change. "The answer is the same." Rowan had stopped listening. He was looking at the signal mechanism mounted on the guard station wall. A cable and ratchet assembly for sending coded rings to the upper levels. His father's old irrigation control had used the same principle, smaller in scale but identical in logic. The ratchet arm was riding high on the teeth, the pivot worn, catching on the tooth face instead of clearing it. He could see where it was jamming from where he stood. "How long has that been broken?" he asked. Both Pip and the guard looked at him. The guard glanced at the assembly. "Yesterday morning. We have been running messages by foot." "I can fix it," Rowan said. The guard studied him the way she had studied the mechanism. "In exchange for what?" "A message to Dr. Okoye," Rowan said. "That she has a mountain visitor, mechanical background, mother with bacterial pneumonia. Her call from there." The guard looked at the mechanism, then at Rowan's hands again. "If you damage it further, it goes back on the repair queue and you leave empty-handed." "I will not damage it further," Rowan said. She stepped back from the station. "Show me." Rowan set down his pack and examined the assembly. The pivot pin was worn, the arm riding a fraction too high, catching instead of releasing cleanly. He needed something thin to shim it. He looked at Pip. "The copper wire," he said. She had it out before he finished the sentence, already cutting a short length with the knife at her belt. He stripped a half-centimeter, folded it once, seated it under the pivot pin, and tested the arm through one cycle. The ratchet caught and released cleanly. He ran it 3 more times, then stood. The guard tested it herself, pulling the cable through 2 full sequences. The signal bell overhead rang twice, paused, rang 3 times. She looked at Rowan. "Farm training," Rowan said. She called to the second guard at the interior gate. "Run her to the clinic. Tell Dr. Okoye she has a mountain visitor, mechanical background, mother with bacterial pneumonia, and ask if she will see him today." The second guard went. The tall woman turned back to her ledger. Pip said nothing, which was unusual enough that Rowan noticed it. After a few minutes, the runner returned and spoke quietly to the guard, who nodded. "Dr. Okoye will see you." The guard stepped aside. "Clinic is on the 2nd level north corridor. Follow the painted lines on the walls, blue for services, green for residential, yellow for trade. Do not enter any area marked with red, as those are restricted during the light window cycle." They passed through the gate and into the city. The sound hit him first. Voices, dozens of them, overlapping in conversation and instruction and argument and greeting. Foot traffic on stone. A continuous shuffle and clap of shoes and boots on surfaces worn smooth by years of use. The clang of metal on metal from somewhere to the left, a workshop of some kind. The hiss of water running through channels cut into the base of the walls. A child shouting something he could not make out, and another child responding. And laughter that ricocheted off the close stone surfaces and reached him from 3 directions at once. The mountain had one voice, his own, and sometimes his mother's, while Meridian had hundreds, and they all spoke at once. Rowan's foot caught on the threshold stone. He caught himself, but the stumble put his hand against the wall, the stone cool and smooth under his palm. And he left it there longer than he needed to. 3 days in the dim, and before that a lifetime on the mountain, and none of it had prepared him for the density of sound and motion that pressed against him from every side. The chorus had filled a valley, but the chorus had faded. This did not. The smell came next, cooking sharp and rich. Oils and spices he could not identify heating in pans he could not see. Lamp smoke burning in wall sconces with a faint sweet haze that layered the air at head height. Damp stone, human sweat, the vegetal scent of the hanging gardens on the balconies above. And beneath everything, the particular smell of many people living in close quarters. Dense in a way that the mountain's clean air had not prepared him for. Then the space itself. Narrow streets between structures that rose on either side, blocking the sky. the walls close enough that two people with packs could not walk abreast. The stone was smooth from years of foot traffic, each surface carrying the accumulated friction of thousands of daily passages. The painted lines the guard had mentioned ran along the base of the walls in colors Rowan could identify even in the dim, and people followed them with the automatic habit of long practice, stepping aside at intersections, yielding right of way by some protocol Rowan could not parse. Everyone moved with purpose, organized into a flow of bodies that needed no visible authority to direct it. His depth perception failed him almost immediately. The narrow streets and close walls and constant motion confused his mountain-trained eyes, which expected long sight lines and gradual distances. Here, everything was close and sudden. A person would appear at his elbow without warning, and a wall would loom where he expected open space. He walked too close to one structure and his pack scraped the stone, the encyclopedia catching on a protruding bolt, and a woman carrying a stack of cloth stepped around him without slowing, which told him everything he needed to know. At the next intersection, a man crossing the green line shouldered past him. Rowan, who had not been raised to absorb a contact without responding, said, "Excuse me," in the voice he used for situations that had never actually come up. The man stopped, looked at him, looked at his pack and his boots, said, "Mountain," in the same flat tone the guard had used, and walked on. Two people behind the man laughed, not unkindly, but they laughed. Pip caught up to Rowan's elbow. "Do not apologize to people in the streets. Down here, you only apologize for things you actually did. And bumping into someone who shoulders past you is not one of those things. They will think you are weak." "I am not weak," Rowan said. Pip's mouth had moved at the corner, but she was not laughing. "I know. But they do not know what mountain quiet looks like, so they read it as something else. Just walk, and do not look up. The sky is not going anywhere, and looking at it makes you a target." Rowan walked, and did not look up, and did not apologize again. Above, through the gap between buildings, he caught a glimpse of the light well. The sky was brighter here than anywhere he had been outside his mountain. Not bright by before standards, but compared to the deep gray, it was startling. The gray-white light filtered down between the buildings and caught on the solar panels mounted on every available south-facing surface, the panels drinking light with the same quiet desperation his single collector displayed, but multiplied by hundreds. "You look like a rabbit in a market," Pip said, watching him from a few paces ahead. "I have never seen a market either," Rowan said. Pip grinned and took his arm, steering him around a cluster of people gathered near a doorway where a man was distributing something from a large pot, the line orderly, each person holding a bowl. "Stay close. I'll get you to the clinic, and after that you'll need to learn the painted lines, which are simple once you stop looking at everything." She moved through Meridian the way she moved through the dim, with fluid certainty, reading the social landscape as instinctively as she read trail landmarks. She called out to a trader with a cart of dried goods, a woman mending fabric in a doorway who said something about compasses, and a boy of perhaps 10 who ran over to ask about needles. She had some, and business would happen later. Rowan followed. He watched the people of Meridian pass him in the narrow streets, and his mind performed a calculation he had never had occasion to make before. He counted faces. He stopped at 50. The number already larger than the total number of living people he had seen in his life. The guard had said there had been a run of mountain settlements this week. Other farms, other people making the same journey for the same medicine. He did not know what to do with that yet, so he filed it and kept walking. The streets branched and branched again, and each branch carried its own traffic and its own voices, and the count continued whether he tracked it or not. Pip led him up a stone stairway to the second level, following the blue line along the wall. The corridor was quieter here, the traffic thinner, and the relative stillness after the streets below felt almost physical, like stepping indoors after wind. Doors lined the passage, Some open, some closed, and near the end, the air changed. The ambient smells of the city, the cooking and the sweat and the lamp smoke, gave way to something sharp and chemical that stung the inside of his nostrils, antiseptic, which his encyclopedia had described in clinical terms. The reality was colder and more immediate, a scent that belonged to a different kind of survival than anything he had encountered on the trail. "Clinic's at the end," Pip said. She stopped walking. "I'll wait out here." Dr. Okoye does not like crowds in her workspace, and by crowds I mean more than 2 people. Rowan looked at the door at the end of the corridor. Behind it, if his journey had any logic to it, was the medicine that would keep his mother alive. He thought of her in the kitchen the morning he left, refusing to sit down while he packed, telling him the path had not gotten longer just because he was looking at it. He adjusted his pack straps and walked.
Chapter Guild, Stories for Your Mind.